America, in its infancy, was a nation of contradictions. Founded on principles of liberty and equality, it tragically embraced the institution of slavery. This fundamental dissonance would ultimately lead to the cataclysm of the American Civil War. The issue of slavery, deeply intertwined with economic interests, drove a wedge between the North and the South. The North, with its burgeoning industries, viewed slavery as morally repugnant and economically archaic. Abolitionist voices grew stronger, demanding an end to the barbaric practice. In contrast, the South remained deeply entrenched in an agrarian economy reliant on slave labor. As the nation expanded westward, the question of whether slavery should be allowed in new territories inflamed tensions. The Compromise of 1850, a desperate attempt to maintain peace, only served as a temporary reprieve. The stage was set for a confrontation, the chasm between North and South widening with each passing day. The year 1860 marked a turning point in American history. The election of Abraham Lincoln, who declared a house divided against itself cannot stand, sent shockwaves through the South. Lincoln, though not an outright abolitionist, was committed to preventing the expansion of slavery. The Southern states, fearing the loss of their autonomy, saw secession as their only option. South Carolina led the way, followed by Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. These 7 states formed the Confederate States of America, electing Jefferson Davis as their president. The secession of the Southern states was a direct assault on the notion of a unified nation. Lincoln, in his inaugural address, pleaded for reconciliation, stating, "We are not enemies, but friends." His words, however, fell on deaf ears. The South was resolute in its pursuit of independence, and the North, unwilling to see the Union dissolved, prepared for the inevitable clash. The secession plunged America into the abyss of civil war, a conflict that would test the very foundations of the nation. The question was no longer whether slavery would survive, but whether the United States itself would endure. With the Confederacy formed, the lines were drawn in the sand. The nation, once united by shared ideals, now stood divided. The Confederacy, fueled by the conviction that their way of life was under threat, rallied around states' rights and Southern independence. The Confederate Army, though smaller and less equipped, possessed a fierce determination and familiarity with the terrain. Led by skilled commanders like Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, they proved formidable on the battlefield. The South's strategy relied heavily on a defensive war, leveraging their knowledge of the land. The Union, with its larger population and industrial might, had a clear advantage in resources. Yet, they faced the daunting task of subduing a vast and rebellious land. The North's objective was clear: to preserve the Union at all costs. As both sides prepared for conflict, a palpable sense of dread hung in the air. The war began with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, on April 12, 1861. The bombardment marked the official commencement of hostilities, igniting the powder keg that had been building for decades. The first major battle, the First Battle of Bull Run, took place in July 1861 near Manassas, Virginia. The Confederate victory shattered any illusions of a swift end to the conflict. Battle after battle followed, each one a testament to the horrors of war. Shiloh, Antietam, Fredericksburg, Chancellorsville, names etched in blood in American history. The Battle of Antietam, fought in September 1862, proved to be the single bloodiest day in American history. The battle, though tactically a draw, gave Lincoln the victory he needed to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that would forever alter the course of American history. The proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are, and henceforward shall be free. It redefined the war, transforming it into a crusade for human freedom. The proclamation had a profound impact both domestically and internationally. At home, it galvanized the North, infusing the Union cause with a renewed sense of moral purpose. It also struck a blow at the heart of the Confederacy, undermining its economic foundation. Internationally, the Emancipation Proclamation effectively neutralized the possibility of European intervention on behalf of the Confederacy. The Emancipation Proclamation marked a watershed moment in the fight for equality. The tide of war began to turn in favor of the Union in 1863 with the pivotal victories at Vicksburg and Gettysburg. Vicksburg, a strategic Confederate stronghold on the Mississippi River, fell to Union forces under General Ulysses S. Grant in July 1863. The victory gave the Union control of the Mississippi, effectively splitting the Confederacy in two. Gettysburg, a small town in Pennsylvania, became the site of the largest and most consequential battle ever fought on American soil. The three-day battle, fought in July 1863, resulted in a crushing defeat for the Confederacy. As the war raged on, the human cost continued to mount. Both sides suffered heavy casualties, leaving countless families devastated. Finally, on April 9, 1865, after 4 long years of bloodshed, General Robert E. Lee surrendered his Confederate Army to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. The surrender marked the end of the Confederacy and the beginning of a long process of reconciliation and reconstruction. The joy of victory was short-lived. Just days after Lee's surrender, on April 14, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln's death cast a pall over the nation as it struggled to heal the wounds of war. The American Civil War was a defining moment in American history, reshaping the nation's political, social, and economic landscape. It ended the institution of slavery, reaffirmed the supremacy of the federal government, and paved the way for the expansion of civil rights. The legacy of the Civil War continues to reverberate in American society today. The struggle for equality, a central theme of the conflict, remains an ongoing process. The echoes of the past can still be heard in debates over racial justice, states' rights, and the very meaning of freedom. The Civil War serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the importance of unity, dialogue, and compromise. As we remember the sacrifices made by those who fought and died in the Civil War, let us honor their memory by striving to create a nation that truly embodies the principles of liberty, equality, and justice for all. The road to a more just and equitable society is long and arduous, but the legacy of the Civil War reminds us that the pursuit of these ideals is a fight worth waging.